Hello, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us on our weekly webinar. Today, I'm joined by our awesome managing attorney, Ruby Powers, and we are here to discuss the L-1 visas, both the L-1A and the L-1B for temporary workers. And moving on, just some quick background info on our attorney Powers. She is a board-certified immigration and nationality attorney. And she founded our firm back in 2009. She has also been licensed since 2008. Attorney Powers, do you want to go ahead and take it away?
Thank you, Daya. So this L1A and L1B are something that our firm does quite frequently, and it's a great opportunity for companies to transfer their employees here to the United States, and also for those who have a company in another country to open a new office here in the US. And so as we've seen a lot of movement of people post-COVID and also opportunity growing, this is something we wanted to bring up again. And so today we're going to talk about what are the L1 visas, the difference between L1A and L1B, who's eligible, the application process, families, and establishing new office, and some other questions. Again, this doesn't take the place of immigration advice, but it is something that we can share with you and give you some information in case this might be something that applies to what your firm, your company could use, or we'd like to later have a consult that's more tailored to your situation. So what are the L1A, L1 visas in general? So the L1A and the L1B are available to temporary intra-company transferees who work in a managerial positions or have specialized knowledge. So the L1A is a non-immigrant classification for a U.S. employer to transfer an executive or manager from one of its affiliated foreign offices here to the United States in one of their offices. So it enables a foreign company which does not yet have an affiliated U.S. office to send an executive manager with the purpose of establishing one. That's usually what happens, that they're brought here to create that new location. That manager executive has a lot of information, knowledge, skills, and ability to be more of like that, planting that new office, and they need that leadership role. So you have to file the I-129 with the fee for that process. Now so a little bit more about the L1A. So there's the managerial capacity, generally refers to your ability to supervise and control the work of professional employees, or to manage an organization or department or subdivision, function or component of the organization. So it is possible to not have necessarily employees if it's more of a department or a function, but it is important to be able to establish that. So as we say in the next bullet about how that essential function is at a high level, even if it's without the direct supervision of others. And the employer must also meet certain qualifications for this to work. Now the L1B, for example, and just while we were talking about the L1A, let's just say it right here, just to make it clear, this is for 7 years of a maximum. And then for L1B, it's for specialized knowledge. So this is not necessarily the managers or executives, just somebody who has more specialized knowledge of the company's doings, the knowledge about the petitioning organization's product, service, research, equipment, techniques, management, interests, application, international markets. So it's like an advanced level of that knowledge that of knowing that organization's procedures and processes that would be very prohibitive to find somebody else to try to train them and get them up to speed. And so that's why there is the L1B. So for the L1A, you have to have worked for the company 1 year in the last 3 years before you come to the US. And you would show that, same thing with L1B, 1 year in the last 3 years. You have to show that with your employment letter, pay stubs, taxes, your verification letter, everything. So for the L1A, you also need to seek to enter the US to provide service in executive or managerial capacity for a branch of the same employer or one of its qualifying organizations. There needs to be a connection between that company, the one that's being transferred here to the US. The L1B, you need to have the 1 year in the last 3 years, but you also need to be seeking to enter the US to provide services in a specialized knowledge capacity to a branch of the same employer. So like we said before. Now, what is the process? So once people have a consultation and they know what they're planning to do, then we sit down and we basically we send a contract, then they pay, and we give them questionnaire, a list of documents, we get started. And so bottom line, the employer would need to review the answers to the I-129 sign. We'd have the filing fee and provide the required evidence necessary. We also could decide whether or not premium processing is something that the company wants to pursue. At this time, it's $2,500 for a decision within 15 calendar days. And if the individual is needing to do a change of status or extension of stay, that also is taken into consideration. Once the application is received by USCIS, you'll get a receipt notice confirming that it was received, maybe biometrics if necessary. And almost always when we're dealing with USCIS and change of status here, we don't have an interview. If anything, interviews would be more a consulate appointment if we're doing consular processing. So what are the benefits of the L-1 visa? Well, I mean, there's a lot of benefits, actually. The qualified employees entered to establish a new office will be allowed a maximum initial stay of 1 year. And we're going to go over the new office L in really soon. But all other qualified employees will be allowed a maximum stay of 3 years. Now, if you think about it, the L1A is for 7 years. So you could get increments of 2. And then eventually it'll get up to 7. And so ultimately, when you think about L1A is for 7 and L1B is for 5 years. Now, family, people ask about family. Well, the gist of it is that the spouses are called L2s, and the children, unmarried children under 21, are also L2s. The spouses are allowed to work, and there's been some recent updates that have been able to, like very recent, demonstrate that they have work authorization by virtue of having the L2 status. This was a transition between like last fall and the spring. And so depending on when you were provided the L2 status, it may still, you might need to take a look into that, but you don't have to apply for the work authorization like you used to in the past. So this is a great opportunity. The other thing about the L is it's a dual intent visa. So we say non-immigrant, initially, but basically, if you later applied for a green card, that would not be held against you for having immigrant intent. So this was a recent change about not needing to apply for work authorization for the L2 spouses. And there's some information about that here. Now, one other area that we talked to a lot of people about is if they have a business abroad and they're looking to open a new office in the United States. And in the US, they're like, there's business opportunity. Here's my business plan. These are things I want to accomplish and establish. And if you can approve that, you can say like, no, we need to make a new office of my company in the US, and this is the reason why, and this is the markets we're going to go to, and etc. So then that's a really great opportunity. So you have to establish all of those things, and you can apply for the new office L. Upon approval, it'll only be for 1 year. Then before that 1 year is up, you would want to file an extension, and they can give you all 3 more years afterwards. But you need to show that the business is doing well. You've hired individuals ideally, and then you're growing the business. So the U.S. office will support an executive or managerial position within 1 year of the approval. A lot of times in the beginning, it could be more of a what do you call it? Like more of an operations role and getting started, but it needs to be able to support that executive or managerial role within a year, which means being able to have enough funds to be able to support them as well. So it can be a very tight deadline to be able to accomplish this, but it is a great opportunity for those who are not eligible for the E2 visa, but have a business in the home country or somewhere else, and then they're wanting to open a new office here. And again, the same rules apply: an L2 spouse, L2 children, and it gives a lot of opportunity. Now, this is something that happens more with large companies bringing a lot of individuals, but there is this thing called the blanket petitions. And this is for a petitioner and the qualifying organizations that have engaged in commercial trade or services, has an office in the US, has been doing business for a year or more, and has 3 or more domestic foreign branches or subsidiaries. It doesn't mean that they're guaranteed the granted L1A classification, but it does make it a lot easier to facilitate, especially when you have a large company that's bringing a lot of movement of a lot of employees. Now, I just wanted to say one thing before we close up. One thing that happens a lot is that that an L1A can be a pathway to a legal permanent residency via the multinational executive and engineer green card path by filing an I-140. And so that's a typical trajectory. And even just recently, they've opened up premium processing for that for certain applications that were filed in the last year or so. So that is a good opportunity. So L1As can lead to a green card, and L1Bs generally can lead to a green card by doing the perm process. And so it's when you know that, like we said, L1A for 7 years and L1B for 5 years, then you just have to time it correctly so you don't waste. You have enough time to complete your plan with the green card path or legal permanent residency path. So it is a great opportunity, and that's generally what we do with our clients. And so that was the L visa in a nutshell. I know that was quick, but we just wanted to give you a little bit of information. And so, Daya, how do they learn more about us and what's next? So we have lots of ways to stay.
Yeah, we do. So we're live on every Wednesday, 11 weekly webinars. We also do updates on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. where we let y'all know what's going on in the news and updates or whatever's going on. We are also on social media. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. We also have a lot of good information goes out. So make sure you give us a follow on our social media. We will actually be discussing about parole place our next webinar. So if you guys are interested in that, go ahead and join us next week. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you all next week.